Journaling is such a great way to work out what things are going on in your life and in your mind. And it's really something that I recommend everybody do. Journaling has definitely helped me improve my mental health, and it has a lot of great benefits as well. So let's talk about it. First, I'm going to talk a little bit about my personal experience with journaling and how it's helped me and some of like the benefits that I've got from it. I've always had some kind of journal. From like the time that I was little, I've always had a journal, but I've recently started doing it a little bit differently ever since I got into learning about self-help and kind of like healing childhood traumas and triggers and improving my mental health. I've started journaling a little bit differently, and I find it to be a lot more helpful than what I used to do, which is just kind of like write about my day, or like if I was upset about something, I would kind of journal about it and like complain about it a little bit and anything like bad that's going on in my day. But I've started journaling for mental health and journaling for self-help and things like that. And I find that to be a lot more helpful than just journaling about what happened in my day. I've been reading a lot of self-help books recently, and I find that I'm like unlocking traumas and like triggers and like things that I didn't know that I had, and then being able to journal and work through those. And I find that to be immensely helpful. So journaling is a great way to understand the inner workings of your mind. We do so much throughout the day that we rarely ever stop to actually think our thoughts. We may have like a thought in our mind, but then we let it pass us by because we're scrolling through social media to even ignore our thoughts, or we have to cook dinner, or we have to go to work, or we have to do this other thing or this other thing, because there's so many different distractions in our life that we rarely take the time to actually sit with our thoughts and think through them and think through all the triggers and other things that we have that's kind of just deep down hidden because we're so focused on outside things that we never get a chance to work through them. It can also be a great way to vent your feelings. Like I said, I used to use my journal all the time to like complain about like dumb things going on in my life, or just if I had a hard day, I'd sit there and just write about that hard day. Because if you're going through any hurtful situation or just something that you need to vent, the journal page is a perfect listener, especially if you don't have anybody in your life that can listen to you, or something that you don't even trust, maybe. If you don't have somebody in your life like that, journaling is a great second option. And there is really no wrong way to journal. The only way that I can think of a wrong way to journal is if you censor yourself. If you're like me, you may be very like closed off or afraid to show your emotions, and you can't really tell people exactly what's wrong, or you don't like asking for help because you don't want to bother other people, or you don't want to get made fun of, or whatever the issue may be. If you are closed off with other people, when you are journaling, you really don't want to do that, because that is the one way that you can really think through those thoughts and work through them, because nobody else is going to read your journal but you. These are your private thoughts, and if you don't acknowledge them and figure out what's wrong, then you're never actually going to be able to work through those things in order to get past them. All of your thoughts and words are yours and yours alone. So don't censor yourself out of fear or embarrassment or anything like that, because no one is there to judge you if you are the only person that's ever going to read it. And if you're new to journaling and you don't know where to start, or you want some guidance or thought-provoking questions to help you get started, I came up with a little journal prompt / workbook that I have available in my Etsy shop. It's got 95 journal prompts for your mental health, and in addition to that, it has a little bit of a workbook that has places for you to figure out your goals and plan out your month and different things like that. There is a lot of thought-provoking questions in there that's really going to help you get started with journaling. If you just like having journal prompts, or you don't know where to start, you're brand new, you'd like to work through some thoughts but you don't even know really where to start, journal prompts are the perfect way for you to be able to do that and start letting your thoughts flow. And the bonus workbook is also really helpful too for figuring out your goals and different things like that. So if that's something you're interested in, I'll link it down below. I find journal prompts to be really helpful if you have a lot of thoughts that you want to work through and you don't really know where to start, or if you just enjoy having something to write about, you can always use journal prompts. But you can't just start by journaling out your day or something like that. Like, you don't absolutely need journal prompts, but I find them to be extremely helpful. And you don't really need to write a lot either. I usually write a page, and my journal is not very big. This right here is my journal. It's super small, so I usually just like write a page. Sometimes I write more, but I like to at least write the page and fill it up. So you don't really need to have like an 8.5 by 11 giant notebook. You can just buy someone cute like this. It's also a good idea to have a notebook specifically for your journal. You don't really want to just be picking up any random journal and writing down your thoughts in a bunch of different journals, because I like to actually go back through my journal and see, okay, where was I at 11/29/2022? Where was I at? So that I can kind of go back and see my mindset. And maybe I was like writing down goals, or I was like writing about a really hard situation, or writing about a mindset block that I have. And then you can go back and say, wow, I got through that, or I actually did hit that goal, or I manifested that thing. So I really like having a specific journal to write things down in because you can go through it. I like to write down on the top of it if it's going to be a journal section or if it's going to be a manifestation section, because I manifest in my journal as well and script things out and like things that are not actually happening, but things that I'd like to happen. So I write out, label if it's a journal or if it's like a manifesting thing. I write out the time that I'm journaling, and then I also write out the date so that I can see where I was, and then I can look back and be like, wow, this is where I was a whole year ago. I find that to be really helpful and just interesting to like figure out your mindset and stuff, where you are at different points in the year and for your life. And I have a few other things in here too. Like the first page I always like to use for goals. I like to journal about the year before and say like, okay, this is how the year went, and just different like bullet journal things that you can put in here. But this journal, other than that, is primarily for journaling, goals, personal development, self-help, all those things like that. There's not like, I'm not writing grocery lists in here or anything. I personally love buying a new journal once I fill one up. This is the second one that I've had since I recently got back into journaling. And you can just use like a notebook if you want, or like whatever you have around the house. If you want to start now, you can always just start with whatever. But I like to have something that inspires me to actually write. So this one says choose your path on it. And I like to go to Target or wherever and just buy a journal that inspires me to write and is really cute, as opposed to just some random thing that I would like write a grocery list in or something. And you don't need to write every day either. There is a common misconception when it comes to journaling, where some people will tell you that you have to write every day, every single morning, make it part of your routine, no matter if you have something to write or not, force yourself to write every day. And that might be helpful for some people. If you're going through a lot, you might need to write every day. Or if you're trying to get into the routine of journaling and you've never journaled before and it's really awkward for you, you might have to get into a routine of journaling every day or a couple times a week. You might need to use journal prompts and things like that in order to help yourself get into the flow and get used to writing. But for me personally, I don't find that to be very helpful, because then journaling will seem like an assignment or like something that you just need to get done and get through and then move on with your day. Journaling is not like a checklist that you need to hit every single day. Like, okay, I need to check that off my to-do list. I journaled, because then it feels like it's forcing you to do it, as opposed to journaling because you want to or because you have something to work through. So if you are not a journal every day type of person, you don't have to do that. Maybe you want to test it out. Like that's something you want to try. And if you are a journal everyday person, like more power to you. I am definitely not, like not bashing anybody's journaling habits, but if you don't want to do that and it doesn't fit with what you are interested in, then just don't do it. I personally like to journal at night, pretty much journal 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock at night, right before I go to bed as my wind down for the day. It is definitely something that you want to get in a consistent schedule with and think about like, oh, I have this thought, I should journal about it, and not something that you want to do every once a month or so. I wouldn't take like a 2-week break, 3-week break, a month break from journaling, but like you just kind of have to find a balance. Whatever works best for you, make sure you're consistent with it, but it definitely doesn't have to be an everyday thing. I personally noticed that journaling really started to help with my mental health when I started reading those self-help books. And I was discovering limiting beliefs or blocks or childhood trauma that I have that I needed to work through. I found that was really helpful, as opposed to what I used to do of just complaining about my day. And I think it's okay to complain about your day and like be like, this was really hard, let me talk about it, I just need to vent. That's definitely something that is okay, and I think you should 100% do. But it got to a point where every day in my journal or not every day, but like every time I had something bad, I was like, let me pull out my journal, and that's all I was writing about. So then journaling, it had like a negative connotation to it, because that's all that I was doing, and it was mostly just complaining while doing nothing about it. And like some situations you can't do anything about, like if you're complaining about your like family or whatever, there's not much you can do about that. But I found it really helpful when I started to work through those emotions, as opposed to just being like, this sucked and that's it. But at the end of the day, when I was complaining just to complain, I felt worse instead of better. Instead of using my journal for healing and growth and things like that, I started to feel a lot better. And reading self-help and mindset books in your 20s is definitely something that I would get into the habit of doing. I personally have a few books that I'm reading right now that I really enjoy. Like You Are a Badass by Jen Sincero was one of the first books that I read in the self-help niche that is definitely definitely a good starter. I also read Embrace Your Almost. I cannot remember who it's by, but it's a fantastic book. I'll link those down below if you want to see them. And I'm also reading a couple books from Gabrielle Bernstein called The Universe Has Your Back, and Super Attractor is another one that I'm currently going through and reading. But that is definitely a habit that you want to get into in your 20s if you want to start feeling better and have better mental health. I think you can uncover a lot of stuff by having the journaling and self-help book combo together is really, really powerful. And if you want to learn more habits that you should pick up in your 20s, you really should check out this video right here where we talk about exactly that topic. And if you enjoyed this video, make sure to like if you like and subscribe to my channel down below for more videos just like this. Bye.